Now that we know how to define a class and how to create an object from it, we need to talk about instances and have an understanding of what an instance is. Because an instance is a fundamental concept in object-oriented programming, and it's going to be central to working with classes. Outside of programming, the typical definition for instance might be a case or an occurrence, an example put forth. So what we're talking about when we talk about programming is a very similar thing. We're talking about an occurrence of our class. That's what it is. It is an object that's been created from a class. So when we created animal.new, we created an instance of the class animal, and then we assigned it to a variable. Now before I was just saying it's an object that we created, but it's an instance. You want to start using that word. You can use object too when you're talking about it. That's perfectly fine. It is an object, but it's an instance of a class, and that's very important for us. I'm going to go into my Ruby sandbox where I've got a file called classes.rb. Now you can either copy the code down or you can pull it from the exercise files, but it's basically just the simple animal class definition that we did earlier in IRB, but now I've put it into its own file. Right here is where we're creating the instance. What gets returned to us from animal new as a result of the operation is an instance, and then we're assigning that instance to animal. And then we tell that instance to make noise. Now we can do that again, let's say down here. Now we're creating a new instance. We'll call this one animal2 and this one animal1, just so we can tell the difference. Now we can ask animal2 to do the same thing. Animal2, make noise. Now these two instances are going to do the same thing, right? Both of them are going to return moo. But the important point about instances is that they are not the same. They are two separate objects. And we'll see how to differentiate them a little later on. But it's important to realize that every time we call animal.new, we get back a new and different instance, a different object. It's a lot like one of those memo pads, like a while you were out pad, and you can pull off a separate page every time you need to take a new message, right? Each one is different, but they all came from the same place. The memo pad is like the class. It has all the definitions for it. It has all those blank spaces filled in. It predefines how you can take a message. But then each and every time we pull it off, we make a new instance of it, and we fill it out differently with different information for each call. So how can we fill in the blanks on these forms? How can we tell our animals apart so that different animals make different noises or have different names or different numbers of legs? Well, in order to do that, we're going to need to put variables inside of our class definitions to hold those attributes. Let's look at attributes in the next movie to see how, and then I think it'll be a lot clearer when we're dealing with different instances.